Hi, I'm Barry and Brandon, and this is the Stranded Colorwork discussion. Yes, that is exactly what it is. However, there's no episode thing today, because we're going to do something a little bit different in this discussion. What I want to talk about today is why stranded colorwork, why Fair Isle, why that type of knitting as opposed to regular knitting. Okay, why do I design in stranded colorwork? Why do you do stranded colorwork? If you're here, I'm presuming you're interested in it. You want to learn more. You're contemplating, as they say. Why? Okay, why this and not some other form of knitting? For me, because you're probably doing a little of this and a little of that, but this is all I do. And I started thinking about it and kind of trying to break it down. And it's not just knitting, because we all know why we knit, right? I mean, it's convenient. It is fun. It has a community about it. It is contemplative, if you will. The repetitive motion of knitting is relaxing. It brings down, heart rates. It is just cathartic, if you will. But stranded colorwork knitting is a little different. It's that next little thing not a step, but it's just just different than regular knitting. Okay. So I've been thinking about this, and I'm thinking that I'm breaking it down into the components of why stranded knitting. It's the color. That's the obvious thing. It's the color. Oh my gosh, it's the color. It is that feeling you get when you go to a trade show, or you go to the market for some conference, stitches or whatever. All the ones that have the trade floors where they lay out all of their colors in their booth. It's that feeling where you just want to go, kid in the candy store. I want them all. I want them to give them to me. It is that rush you feel of the possibilities of all the combinations of color and all the things you can do with all of that. At least that's what I feel. Hopefully you feel the same way. If you're here, you like stranded colorwork like I do, but maybe to not the same extent, but maybe you do. I don't know. So anyway, but it's that wonderful feeling of color. And yes, you can do color other ways. You can do stripes, you can do slip stitch, you can do intarsia work, you can do things like that. You can also do those lovely, gorgeous, skeins of yarn that have all sorts of combinations of color, but that the dyer has pulled out for you to put in those combinations. In my mind, stranded work, you either are pulling the colors together the designer has suggested for you, or you are pulling your own colors together and placing them where you want them to go. I feel that way about designing. And I know some of you will look at my colors and say, that's what I want. And I don't feel confident enough to substitute in other colors. And that's perfectly fine. But there's some of you who want to say, well, what happens if I don't like purple? Heaven forbid, I don't know what planet you live on if you don't like purple. But anyway, that you don't like purple. So you want to substitute some other color and try it in there. Well, then, you have the ability with this particular type of knitting to do that. So it's definitely the color, the possibilities of the color combinations. The next thing I thought of beyond the color, and in addition to the color, is the pattern, is the patterning. It is, it kind of takes that repetitive knitting, knitting, whatever, the lower of the broad rate, the good, whatever it is I'm trying to say. It takes that just one step up. It just bumps it up a notch, where you're actually working, say, 2 of this color, 3 of that, 5 of those, 2 of this color, 3 of that. It's that calming, repetitive, but now you've added just one more notch where you're doing the colors and you're watching the colors go together in the charts, which is so much fun to see. It's the idea of just one more round, just to see how now I've gotten this far in the chart. Next round I get to add another color. What does that look like? And you want to go one more round. It's for traditional Fair Isle work. I mean, this is one with traditional colors in it, but I mean, traditional colors of the sheep, there's still different colors in it. And if you look really closely, I don't know if I can put my hand on it, you look really closely, I actually couldn't stand it just to have the traditional grays and black and creams and stuff of the sheep colors. I had to throw red in just because that's color I would throw it into. But it's not just one more color. It's not just the patterning. It's the idea that you've got with traditional Fair Isle patterning and some of the other traditions as well. You've got a band. You've got that feeling of accomplishment. You've got the banding, and then it's a natural place marker for progress marker. You say, oh, I'm just going to do one more chart. It's just a Peary chart. I can do that one more chart. And the next one is, oh well, I might as well go on. And then you got to finish the chart. And it's that wonderful feeling of how the colors and the chart go together, which I think is kind of cool. The other thing is with traditional Fair Isle, and some of the other ones that I do, which are more organic, don't have this as well. But in traditional Fair Isle, it's the idea that those chart repeats fit so nicely around the body. It all is, there's no messy half patterns or quarter patterns or anything like that for traditional Fair Isle. Now there are other ones that do, but I still think, and I go back to it a lot, is that real good satisfaction of how everything just fits neatly together. It's that math brain I've got, that everything just sort of fits real neatly together. And so I love the patterning of it. I love the possibilities. I like the patterning of going, I go online a lot. If you've seen my stuff, I go online a lot and I look up old lace patterns or old cross stitch patterns or that sort of thing, and then figure out how I'm going to work those into knitting patterns and putting colors into it that way. It is just satisfying to see if I can put the, in the more organic patterns is, will this little knot pattern work with this leaf vine pattern, one of the more recent designs I've done. It's fascinating for me to do. So it's the color, it's the design, it's the way the two fit together. And that people have been doing that for a long time. You've seen, I've been to Shetland several times. One of the times I actually got to go to the museum. It was raining, so we went to the museum. And that was, you shouldn't wait till it's raining to go to the Shetland Museum. It is incredible. But to go up to the sweater section and to see, and they rotate, as I understand, they rotate their exhibits. There happen to be, they just didn't think I'm going to try to get these sweaters in here. The two sweaters that I saw, two pictures that I saw of these sweaters that were done years ago. Probably 100 years ago or more. It is the idea and that there was somebody, possibly a woman, maybe not, figuring out what patterns to go, what colors to put in, how it was going to do, how the neck was going to work, how the sleeves were going to work. Decisions that you and I make for these kind of things all the time. And yet, at least 100 years ago, with some of these pictures and things from the Shetland Museum or more, or 2 or 3 or several hundred years ago, knitters were doing the exact same thing. They're the exact same, coming up to some of the similar, if not the exact same issues, problems, obstacles to overcome, and thinking it through and getting it accomplished. And sometimes they solve it this way, sometimes I might solve it that way. Sometimes as our collective brain comes together and we come up with various ways now that we can communicate, with this internet, with the internet, we can communicate more, so that our collective brain is becoming bigger. I know I'm assuming that in days of Shetland or other places where they were knitting, you had the community, and then any sort of travelers coming through or would bring a different sweater in, and you kind of say, oh, that's how that knitter solved it. So it's a fascinating thing for me because I feel like there are ties to history. I feel like that as I'm picking up my needles, and granted my needles are cable needles and they're not the long knitting pins that they use on Shetland with the knitting belts and the whole thing, but in a way some of the same decisions are being made, or same ideas are being thought through. And I think that's fascinating. I also think it's fascinating the evolution of perhaps the patterning, the colors, the idea that the traditional Fair Isle color patterns and colors too, the traditional Fair Isle, the ones from Fair Isle, were the traditional dyed yarns or even the natural colors of the sheep that they had at that point. And then the chemical dyes came in and they could get all sorts of colors. So it progressed even more. The patterning was of the major patterns were an OXO. You've heard me talk about this, I'm sure, before. An OXO patterning, the OXO patterning of the lozenge, as they call it, and the X and the lozenge again, all the way around, of the larger patterns. You've got those, and then you have the influence from Scandinavia, or you may have the influence of some other something coming in, and that kind of gets melded in, so that it's an ever-growing craft of people that, as I said, the collective brain kind of throws in and makes it better. And then once you get to this collective thing, you can also go back and have the clarity and the tie to history of some of the original ones. These are some of the original patterns without the red, obviously, but some of the original type motifs and things. So you've got color, you've got pattern, and you've got that tie to history, that tie to other hands holding other needles with other yarn, working on the same kind of things that you're working on. The other thing I thought of, and you probably know this one pretty well, is I don't know how to say it. It's the wow. It's the you finish your sweater, your shawl, your hat, your gloves, whatever you're making, and somehow the stranded work ones stand out, and someone says, "You mean you made that? I don't see how you could do that. You made that?" And you kind of go, "Yes, I actually did." It's a real lovely sense of accomplishment. It's a pat on your own back to say, I did this. I accomplished this. And look, it does look complicated, but you and I both know it's not really that complicated. It just looks complicated for everybody who is a non-knitter, the muggles out there, if you will. And so it's that wonderful sense of accomplishment. It's that wonderful idea that you can do this. You can get this done. And so there's that too. And I do get a little upset with the people who say, I could never do that. Because you actually can. You can do it. But there is that lovely sense of accomplishment. I have a friend who finished the familiar shawl, the one that has all the animals and the vines on it. And I was sat in on a Zoom, online virtual call with some of her and her friends in a different place, and I was there. To help her hold her hand doing actually cutting the steek for the familiar shawl, but and her friends didn't know me at all. I was just this strange person that just happened to be there, and they were going crazy about how she did that work. And it made me feel so good. And I know it made her feel good that she did the work and the shawl is hers. And I know you do the same thing. Look at your version of a designer's pattern or your own design. It makes you feel pretty good. So, and so it's color, it's the patterning that's so great, it's the touch to history, it's the tie to, I said, to other hands and other needles, and it's that way you feel when you finish. And or when you're sitting in the doctor's office and you're working on it and people are going, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous, how, wow, it's that wow. I mean, yes, you can do it for them, but you also do it for yourself to say, yeah, I did this. It's pretty cool. It's just pretty cool. So anyway, why do you do it? Why do you do stranded work? Why are you here watching this stranded work, discussion? Because you're obviously interested. People who are watching this are, and they want to learn more about it. But why? Why do you want to learn more about this type of knitting? Is it the color? Is it the calmness and the wonderful way all the patterns fit together? Is it the tie to history? Is it the bragging rights, if you will, that you love the final project? It's the feeling of accomplishment that you have finished something like this. So what do you think? Do you want to call it something? Put a name to it? Is it, ferile bliss? Is it color and pattern harmony? Or is it the stranded, I don't know, stranded wonder? Is it the stranded something? I don't know, something like that. What do you call it? What do you call that thing that, I want to say it's like the, I don't know, the other word will come to me, but it's like when you taste food and it just tastes, that's that, so anyway, well, that's it for me now. I'll get back. The next thing up, I think, is centering, am I centering sleeves? Something to do with math. I know that much. So I just hadn't had that. I looked it up, but it's something about centering sleeves and ribbing or something like that. But anyway, it's something to do with math. We're getting close, people. We're coming up on number 14 or 15. 15, I think, is coming up. And they're only like 17, so we're getting close. But as we've gotten this close, I just wanted us to think about why we do this. So, okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being interested. Leave a comment. Why do you do this? What is your feeling of not why you watch me, because you can watch a whole bunch of other people, but why this type of knitting? So, thanks, guys. You can find me in all the usual places, and you might have noticed. Oh, let's make lots of noise. You might have noticed that starting on the last episode. I did get a new computer. I have a new editing software. I'm having fun figuring all that out. So everything looks a little bit different, but it's still the same old design, same old stranded color work. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.